took an old one down. The dream of me and you and us still hanging around. I wanted that ring, I wanted that dress.
Hello and welcome everyone to Beethewellness podcast, episode number 15. Adam and Vanessa Lambert here, fixing to talk about June.
Hello, everyone. I can't believe it's only podcast 15. I feel like we've done like 1,000 of these.
I know. It is a little bit deceiving.
I'm like, wait, only 15?
Like 15?
Haven't we been doing like 400 of these?
But what it means though, well, I mean, and that doesn't count the in-between episodes.
That's true.
Right. So those
That's
things
true.
always pop in there. But it's an interesting count though, because that means that's 15 weeks of Beethewellness.
Is it actually 15 weeks? It is, huh?
Yeah.
Because tomorrow, tomorrow starts 16 and that's month 4. So you're right.
Yeah.
You know numbers.
Yeah. Numbers. So like, I don't know. So that's cool. Things are happening. Yep.
Yeah, and we've got some people in here that have been with us since day one and some newcomers. We've got a lot of newcomers, I feel like, this month. We're excited to have you all here, and it's going to be a good month. It's our last month of spring.
Yeah. And we get into the real fun of summer.
Yeah, I know, right? The hot season.
The madness. Yeah.
The madness. Yeah, and it's cool. We've actually had a few newcomers who came on and signed right up for Costa Rica next year, and they're just in it to win it.
Yeah, that's right. They're going for the full experience right out the gate.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you haven't been privy to the Costa Rica announcement, we announced that last week, I guess. Yeah, last week.
Yes.
And we've already got, I think, 9 spaces filled. So we're looking for a single female to round out our number 10 spot to be a roomie with one of our females who signed up. And hopefully we'll just have another handful of people who sign up and we'll be good to go. We're really looking forward to that next trip. And if you're out there and you're thinking about coming, come on.
Do it. It's going to be super cool.
Yeah, actually, I think my mama's going to come and help us do some mindfulness work down there. And it's fixing to be a pretty special time.
Sweet.
Yeah. So anyhow, we were going to dive into a little bit of information on mindfulness this week. We had a question about mindfulness and kind of just why we do it. What's the deal? Like, is this really something that we should be focused on? Why should we be focused on it? Does this actually work? What's the scoop?
Right.
Yeah.
What is the scoop?
What is the scoop? And Adam and I kind of went back and forth actually with this because we started pulling up studies and we started digging through all this very factual information. And then we kind of backtracked a little bit and said, the bottom line is we can pull up all these studies about how, your brain will atrophy less as you age, right, or it will help with anxiety and depression. We can pull up all of these informational studies, and there are myriads of studies out there. If you want to dig into this, you can find a study that proves that mindfulness or meditation can pretty much help with anything.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, especially now with the fMRI stuff, right? The functional magnetic resonance imaging.
Right.
That whole setup is pretty sweet. So they can, really what it is almost like high resolution MRI, and they can sort of scan your brain while you're doing things. Right.
To see how it's changing.
To see what's happening, right?
Right.
What areas light up and what areas don't light up and how all of that stuff jives. So and that technology is just getting, like, the definition is getting better and better. So they almost have like a high definition fMRI now.
Right.
So like it's just getting cooler and cooler. But like what Vanessa was saying, and kind of something that a frustration she's expressed in the past with this stuff is like, science is just finally coming around to proving what we've already known. You know what I mean? Or like what's been, like, these people have been doing this for 1,000 years or more, right, thousands of years, saying, no, this really helps, and now we've got some dude at Yale that's like, aha,
we think this might help.
We think it might help, based on this little thing over here, So
Yeah. This is a common frustration for me because, oftentimes I think until people have a study that shows it. And the funny thing is, you can have a study that's not even really that conclusive, or
for sure.
It's like, what exactly are you looking for to make you feel like you want to try this? And it reminds me of a lot of when we first went paleo and we first started learning about paleo. And a lot of people, when they first learn about it, they're like, I don't know, I need to see the studies. I need more information. But the true bottom line is just try it. Truly, truly try it for 30 or 60 days. And we're not talking about, I didn't eat bread for half the week, or I didn't, have my normal piece of cake on Sunday.
I skipped Cake Thursday.
Yeah, Cake Thursday became Fruit Friday. But yeah, and obviously I'm not actually talking about paleo now, but what I'm saying is it's the same thing for the mindfulness work, that until you really truly give yourself time to try it consistently, and by that we mean pretty much every day, some kind of mindfulness work every day, then you really just won't, you'll see glimmers of hope. You'll see kind of sparkles in the distance of like, oh, this can do something nice for me. Or today I feel like a slight change, or I feel calmer. But until you really make that consistent effort, you just can't tell. And just like before you went paleo, until you actually did it for a while, you didn't really know. And then you look back and you went, oh my gosh, I don't ever want to feel like I felt before.
Yeah, totally. And I think one of the things that seems to be the most immediate benefit, and there's so many ways to approach this, whether you do like an actual yoga practice, or you just practice breathing, or you lay on the floor and belly breathe, or whatever your particular, mindfulness practice is. But the idea is that you're turning enough attention to the inside to sort of try to separate out the chatter and the conversation that's going on in your mind, and the thing that I've actually kind of come through a couple of, I think epiphany is a strong word, but like realizations. You can talk about this stuff all the time, and you can practice and practice and practice, and then all of a sudden you're like, the sky is blue, right? Yes, the sky is blue, and then one day you're like, oh my God, the sky is blue, like. That's what they've been talking about, like this whole
now
time.
I get
I
it.
knew the words, but I didn't really know what was up.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a lot like surfing your first wave. You're like, oh my God, that's why everybody's obsessed with this.
It's so much quieter over here,
Yes.
And that sort of, that idea of, just asking yourself who you're having this conversation with, like,
right.
Who are you talking to in there? Because it's a little weird, like if all that chatter was happening in your outside voice, you'd be the crazy person on the corner.
Yes.
In a van down by the river or whatever, whatever that.
And I have to admit, sometimes I'm the crazy person that's talking to myself out loud in my car. Yeah, and I'm so glad that there's Bluetooth, because I'm like, okay, people just think I'm on the phone.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, people used to think you're weird.
Yeah. Okay, I am.
Yeah. So,
but one of the things that happens here is that it seems a meditation practice or a mindfulness practice, it seems to reduce the activity, like Adam's talking about, that conversation in the default mode network of your brain. And that's the area that, sometimes people refer to it as monkey brain, when your brain's just kind of on a rampage and it's just wandering and it's thinking about nothing in particular, but it's just sort of all over the place with where your thoughts are going. And the problem with being in this state, in this monkey brain state, is that people seem to be less happy the more they're in this state. And if you think about it, think about when your mind starts wandering, are you thinking, wow, everything is awesome? Usually you're like, am I going to be late for this? I have to do this. Oh man, I wonder if so-and-so remembered this. Or, oh man, I just thought about 4 years ago when I accidentally
tripped in the parking lot and it was super embarrassing.
Yes. Yeah. Totally. Your mind just starts connecting with all of these thoughts that do not make you happy. Yeah. Bottom line.
Yeah. It's a really unfortunate thing. And it seems to happen for a lot of people. I think that the majority of people suffer from this to some degree, where and I mean, my mind tends to wander. I'm kind of a contemplative, for lack of a better word. And so my mind will go off and about, but it's almost always trying to figure something out, but when I'm not doing that, like if it's just pure wandering, it is like worst case scenario heat seeker.
Yes.
It's like, oh man, 3 days ago, this thing happened and it didn't turn out bad, but man, if it did turn out bad, it would have been really bad. And you're like, what are you doing?
Right.
It's like, stop.
You have yourself homeless without an arm.
It's
like no teeth in no time.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. And not that there's anything wrong with being homeless or having no teeth or no arm. Those are all totally fine things that are overcomeable. But
yeah, they just would have been like a really weird outcome from my forgetting to pay the utility bill or whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, and this really is the crux of this whole mindfulness thing, and why we've made the meditation challenge free, and why we've tried to give you some different options. We're not trying to pigeonhole you into doing any particular mindfulness work that you're not comfortable with, but we're just trying to emphasize how important that part of this journey is. And we're not, it's not just about peace, love, and happiness. It's about literally what's going on in your brain. And just like we talk about the proprioception work, it seems that the mindfulness work affects the brain in a very similar way, with the way that it affects and creates new neural pathways. Yeah. So it's
synaptogenesis.
Yeah.
New word of the day. Synaptogenesis. I like it.
I like that. Yeah. I'm going to put that on my license plate. How do you abbreviate that?
I don't get it. There'll be some neuroscientist would get it and fall in love.
Yes.
They'd be like, oh my God.
Perfect. I found my next husband. Okay. So anyhow, we really we want to go over this again, because obviously, like we're saying, the meditation challenge is free. And I know we're repeating it a few months in a row. It's a lot of work for us to do a brand new one every month. But, it seems that everybody's getting something different each time they listen to the meditations. And that's another thing that we want to encourage you guys to explore is, how your reaction to the meditations change over time. So something may hit you. You may listen to one of the meditations about habits or love or something, and it may hit you in a certain way. And we've even had people express that, some of the meditations, some of the verbiage has made them upset. And, not that that's my intention or our intention in any way, shape, or form, but that's really good information. This is really good stuff to look at and see what your reactions to things are, how it triggers you, and how that changes over time.
Yeah, good information for yourself. I mean, it's good feedback for us, but I think what you mean is, take note of that, right?
Yes.
You're like, oh, yes. Wow, why did this word,
why did this bother
thing
me?
Make me so, whatever. And in the same with the happy side of it, I think we tend to forget that, but like focusing, we tend to sort of focus on the negative triggers. You're like, oh, this is a negative trigger for me, so I should avoid it. When we need to put equal amount of time to, this made me feel amazing, so I'm going to keep after it. I'm going to keep doing that,
Yeah. And, one of the greatest things that I can hear from folks is, I don't know, nothing really got lit up for me, but I fell asleep and I felt good. And it's like, that's great. Yeah, it's perfect. That means that you reached that nice Zen state that, where your brain got to quiet and everything got to shut down a little bit. And you just reached a nice vibration where you could go, okay, nothing's really triggered. I'm not really tripping on any of the verbiage or the message of this, but I just feel good.
Yeah.
And
you must have needed some sleep.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And I was a little sleepy. And that's another thing, is this gives yourself a chance to actually fall asleep if you need to. Like catching a 20-minute nap in the middle of the day can be very, very helpful. Yeah,
for sure. And, one of the things that I think, and the mindfulness term, I think for a while has been, has kind of worked to maybe steer the conversation of meditation and introspection away from spirituality, because I think people tend to get kind of stuck in that, right? They're like, oh, I don't know about all this. It's, I'm not buying that spiritual path or that religion or that whatever.
Right.
And so the mindfulness word, I think now is kind of starting to be sucked back into that a little bit. So we may need a new word. I mean, I'm not sure what it is. But it's really important to remember that it doesn't have to have. I mean, it certainly can be spiritual practice if that's what you want it to be.
Right.
But it's not even remotely necessary. That has literally nothing to do with it.
Right, which is another good example of why are we so sensitive to that? It's like one way or another, whether you're a religious person or a spiritual person or an atheist, what is that reaction that people are having to perhaps, oh no, this is something religious or spiritual? Who cares? Like whether it's religious or it's spiritual or it's not, just let the experience be what it needs to be for you and be cool with that, because ultimately it's all about just becoming more calm and more balanced and more okay with things.
What if there's a subliminal message?
Yes.
what if we're secretly hypnotizing people and they're going to start dyeing their hair purple?
The binaural beats people.
Yep.
Watch out for them. You're going to get a tattoo.
You know what? That's the thing, right? So
somebody in this group already got a tattoo.
Yep. It's true. It's working.
It's working. No, but we really just wanted to take a little bit of time today because I think it's a great question and it's a great, a lot of us have an easier time wrapping our minds around the food and the workouts. Those are very proactive things. We can buy the right food. We can make the right meals. We can make sure we do our workouts. But you ask us to just stop and be quiet. And we're like, oh, you better prove that's good for me.
That can't be good at all. Whoever this is in my head is telling me that silence is weird.
It's a bad idea.
It's a bad idea. Yeah, totally. And actually, so outside of, the guided meditations, I think are really good for a lot of people. And I know that, so how we sort of landed on those was we did a poll a while back, right? With the mindfulness. We're like, hey, so which of these things seem to be the most helpful for you? And by far, the vast majority of people liked the guided meditations, but the distant second place was the breathing technique and the breath work. And so I just wanted to share, before I forget, a simple technique for that I can't claim ownership to, but it's what they've been teaching Navy SEALs for quite a while, and I'm sure, a handful of other special operators and stuff, but it's the 4-4-4. Is what they call it, and it's 4 breaths or 4 count inhale, 4 count exhale for 4 minutes, 4 times a day. And that's, so that can be anytime you're feeling stressed. If you're driving in a high traffic situation, if you're sitting in the office and just in a miserable state, take the moment, do your 4 count in, your 4 count out 4 times, or for 4 minutes, whatever you have time to do, and try to split that up, 4 times a day, and they see pretty dramatic effect. And so this is a cumulative practice, right? So you just kind of try to keep track of it and try to get that stuff in throughout the day, and then you just have the ability to, the more that you do it, what they're finding is that the quicker you can just bring everything back down. So when you practice that breathing, and you get familiar with what it's like to sort of downregulate your HPA axis and all of the adrenal sort of fight or flight stuff, then all of a sudden you can just toggle it like a switch. You're like, I can feel it. Boom, there it's gone.
I can bring it back down, right? Yeah, and I think that is really the point of all of the mindfulness work, is that you can recognize, okay, there is a difference between a place where I feel calm and centered and the place where I don't, and recognizing when that onset happens, where you start to slide into that space that is not of your best potential, your highest potential, and you can just easily do something, whatever it is, breathe or count your steps, whatever it is, just to bring it back into balance. And the more you practice it, the easier it becomes, the less you spend in that monkey brain state. And apparently the happy you are. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, that is definitely what all the studies point to. And that's, that's the thing that is a little bit challenging with a lot of this stuff is this kind of, it's like the chicken and an egg scenario. And I mean, a lot of studies do a good job of sort of trying to separate that stuff out with, by using controls, right? So you're like, these people did this and these people didn't do this. And we found that there's a difference between the two. And the one thing that they have a really hard time sorting out with this, and it's the same in the nutrition stuff, is this healthy user bias thing, right? Where, so people who have a meditative or mindfulness practice are probably doing other things that are healthier as well, right? So like they have enough time in the day, so they have some level of commitment and like determination to do something, right? So you see that all over the place, so look at all these happy people that are meditating. You're like, yeah, but what else is going on? Like what other things do they have going on? So it can be difficult, it can be really difficult to kind of, needle in the haystack down to the bottom of these things. And if you can always find a reason why it's not for you, or, they only did this because they're, they live on the left side of the railroad tracks and everyone on the right side, it's a completely different scenario for them. And you'll be able to find that in anything, being a sort of recovering cynic myself, like you can always find why it's not going to work, or why the result that you're skeptical of showed up,
Right, sure.
But again, the entire point behind the mindfulness stuff is to separate the wheat from the chaff, so to speak, in your mind and just stop listening to that chatter. Recognize it as chatter, stop listening to it, and focus on the lack of chatter that,
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the other things to think about is, maybe you've tried doing mindfulness work before or meditation and you didn't stick to it, or your practice, wasn't as consistent as perhaps it could have been. And so in your mind, you filed it away as, I tried that. It didn't work. Revisit that and say, okay, wait, did I really try that? Just once again, like when you went paleo, but you didn't lose any body fat or whatever. Did you really go paleo? Like, did you really, really do it for 30 days? And, did you not eat any bread? But, give yourself permission to revisit it, because you may just have put this default setting in your brain like, I've tried that, it doesn't work. But maybe it's time to revisit it. And people are ready for things at different times in their lives. Just like sometimes you try eating one way, you try exercising and you don't stick to it, but you come back to it a year later and something's just shifted in you that you're ready to actually do it. And whatever that is, the energy, your time schedule, something just clicks and you're able to do it. The same goes for the mindfulness stuff. So if there's people out there that have thought, I tried yoga or I tried meditation and I'm just meh on it, try revisiting it. See if you can make space for it. See if you can find a way to go, maybe I'm more open to that again. Maybe that could make a really good addition to my wellness picture.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. I
think I'll share one more sort of description of the whole thing that has helped me kind of have an understanding of the goal. So I think that's one of the biggest problems, right? Is if you've never been into I don't know what Zen state or whatever you want to call it, this state of quiet mind. If you've never been there, it's very difficult to know if you're headed in the right direction, right?
Right.
It's like, I don't know where this place is, but I'm on the road that someone said takes me there. And I guess I'll know whenever I get there, I'll find out,
Sure.
And
that
can
absolutely.
be pretty challenging, So one of the things that has kind of helped me in this is this visualizing this idea that you're standing in the middle of a street, of an incredibly busy street, and there's, think like downtown Manhattan. Everything's honking and there's cars whizzing by. Well, maybe whizzing by is not the right word. Manhattan, somewhere
stuck
LA.
in traffic next to you.
LA, there's people flying back and forth, right? You're in the middle of the street and it's madness out there, absolute madness. And then imagine yourself in the same circumstance, except you're sitting at the bus stop on the side of the street and all the cars are still going by. All the madness still exists, yet you're not affected by it because you're just sitting on the side of the street, not in the center. And so if you think about that traffic, like your mind and all of this monkey chatter and stuff that's coming back and forth and going, pull back somehow and be an observer of that.
Right.
And then it starts to fall away.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I feel more zen just hearing that. But it's true, and I think that because of the way that we are socialized or raised, or the way that we are taught to set goals and strive to achieve them and work hard, there's this really serious dilemma for us as humans to give ourselves permission to do this kind of work and to allow ourselves to be quiet and to be still. And, a lot of us, I think, out there in this paleo and ancestral world are doers by nature. I feel like there's a lot of people who take an interest in their health and wellness. And if they take it to this degree, they're pretty cognizant and they're pretty self-motivated, and they want to go out and try to make things happen in their life. So this may be a challenge for a lot of us, because it's all of the sudden saying, oh, actually, it's just okay to do nothing, and to not worry, and not to try for anything, and not to worry about goals or set goals, just to let everything go. It feels like, oh no, well, I'm going to let go of my ambition, or I'm not going to achieve things, or I'm going to get behind, or all of these things start flooding our mind. And you have to just recognize that that's not the case. In fact, giving yourself this time will probably make those goals and make all of those things come a little bit easier and with a little less stress.
Totally. I mean, we're fans of Tim Ferriss and his podcast, and one of the things that he always asks people, because he interviews people who are successful by almost every measure. Incredibly talented athletes, incredibly talented entrepreneurs, people that are doing amazing things, right? And almost across the board, all of them have some sort of mindfulness or meditation practice and like a morning routine that includes that,
Yeah. Absolutely.
And like Tony Robbins is a perfect example. I mean, that guy is doing more, than anyone.
Seriously.
He is one busy dude, and he's doing a lot of really cool stuff. And he has an incredibly specific set of things that he does in the morning that, in his view, are like what allow him to do this kind of stuff.
Right? Yeah. No, that guy's a freak of nature. He is so impressive as a human being. But, I think at the end of the day, everyone recognizes that you've got to have some kind of space that you create for yourself to do these things that make the rest of your time so much more valuable.
Totally.
Yeah. So anyhow, that was our big inspiration this week.
Say about that.
Yep. Yeah. We really wanted to give some light to this, because obviously we threw the mindfulness stuff into the challenge, and we sort of said, oh, everyone should do this, but we never really dove too much into why we should do this. I mean, there's been a few articles over the months, but we wanted to maybe just give a little focused attention to it this week, and hopefully something resonated with you guys out there, and that's cool.
Yeah. Totally.
Yeah. So anyhow, thanks again for joining us for another month of Unveil Your Wellness. We are always blown away by just how gracious everyone is in the feed and welcoming the newcomers. And we just want to thank some of the older members who've been here for all of 3 months.
The 15-weekers.
Yes. But we're really grateful to you guys, because you've kind of picked up the ball, and without us having to ask or instigated at all, have been so amazing to everyone that comes into the feed and welcoming them and making them feel like they're home. So thank you so much.
Yes. Thank you. It's the most important part of this whole thing, honestly. And I know that some of you have had some experience in forums and, other places you can go online to be part of some kind of a community that just eventually wind up with a ton of negativity. It's just a really unfortunate part about the internet. And, the troll factor is massive, and we just don't have that. And it's so refreshing to be able to know that you have a place you can go and get empathy and support, and just an outpouring of, been there, done that, and you can do it-ness
Yes.
which is awesome.
It is. It's really special. And I hope that you guys realize how grateful we are to all of you for making it that, because it just wouldn't be without all of you. So thank you again.
Totes.
And yeah, totes. So that's it for this week, a relatively short podcast. But once again, if you guys are interested in joining us for Costa Rica, we have just a few spots left. You can email us at info@beethewellness.com and we can give you more details about that. Or you can visit us at beethewellness.com and see the schedule and list of events that we'll be doing and let us know. So we will see you next week.
All right, folks, have a good week. We'll talk soon.
Bye-bye.
Put up a new balloon today. Took an old one down. The dream of me and you and us still hanging around. I wanted that ring, I wanted that dress, I wanted everything and nothing less. You were so strong and I held on so tight.